What's going on, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the 415ers podcast on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. 2 times a week here in the offseason. As always, that's Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. Marc, my man, how are you?
I'm doing well, Evan. We just got done watching the NCAA men's championship game. UConn, the Huskies come out on top. I know that was a tough one for you. You were riding with the underdog, the Aztecs of San Diego State. So my condolences to you. But I'm doing all right, all things considered, on this Monday evening as we recorded, Evan.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty used to eating top ramen, so it looks like that's the way that things are going to be looking dietary-wise for the next few weeks because it's one of the few big plays I have, Marc. Like, as I said at the beginning of the month of March to all of our loyal listeners out there, I'm a man of honor. I have a code, and my code is that I gamble only in the month of March, and it is
And
April the 3rd.
yeah, I was gonna say, and for
So
the first few days of April. Yeah.
as long as the national championship is still relevant, I and my gambling habits are still relevant. So I threw it all on San Diego State. If you asked me who was going to win the game before, I would have told you UConn. But Marc, I mean, who plays the favorites when you play the ponies? You go for it all, you lose it all, and that's just the way you have to live your life.
Yeah, hey, I mean, high risk, high reward. That's how you go. That's how you roll. We can tell. Unfortunately, I mean, it worked for you getting to this point. I mean,
I
you had
did.
yourself a pretty good March altogether, and then you put all the winnings together and risked it one final time, and it didn't pay out for you. But you had, I mean, you had a maybe a positive record. But the last game hurt you big time.
TBD on the record, but I do like my dogs, and the Aztecs were ultimate underdogs. My mom went to San Diego State, so that was my
There we go.
sort of my reasoning behind, all right, why'd I push my chips all in at the front of the table and throw it on Aztec red or black, I guess, in this case. But yeah, unfortunately did not go my way. But what is going Brock Purdy's way is good news because for the first time this offseason since he had his surgery, he was able to give a public statement at one of the Fox Sports local affiliates in Arizona, of course, where he hails from, and essentially saying everything is looking good there, Marc. And the protocol is that you start throwing at 3 months, and then it all depends on how your therapy and your range of motion and everything goes up from that point. But everything is going as planned, quote unquote, according to Brock Purdy. So even though my bets are not going as planned, Brock Purdy's elbow is, and that's really all that matters for the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, everything that they've done and told you this offseason seems to rest with Brock Purdy. So no really major update, but no bad news either. No news is good news, essentially. And that's the case here for Brock Purdy. I mean, you remember what Kyle Shanahan said last week, and we've talked about this at the annual owners meetings. Basically, when asked about Brock Purdy, he said, check back in June. We'll have a better idea then. So this is the first we've heard Brock Purdy really speak publicly about his injury. He said before he starts throwing, at that 3-month mark, which we've thrown around a lot, he said there's still more things he has to check off, more boxes to check off, but that's still the plan. So the good news essentially is we don't have bad news yet. We don't really have good news, just the lack of bad news. And I guess, in a vacuum itself there, that is good news. So yeah, we got to check back in. We'll keep monitoring it. We'll check in every couple of weeks with, Brock Purdy every time there is some sort of update here. But the latest is he seems at least on track. It's still so early in the process. It's hard to exactly keep track of it. But it does seem like there's nothing majorly wrong in the process just yet.
Yeah, look, we'll dig into some other 49ers quarterback-centric news or rumors that were floating around this week, as well as some ownership talk with Jed York, who had some interesting statements this week as well. But this isn't necessarily significant. It's not like you can have a major full-blown takeaway from Brock Purdy saying everything is going according to plan. But it is, in my opinion, Marc, this is kind of the way I'm looking at Brock Purdy's timeline is, in my mind, I have it set and it's based on what John Lynch has said. It's based on what Kyle Shanahan has said, and it's based on the actions from last season that we've discussed ad nauseum about how they treated Brock Purdy compared to Trey Lance, and now how they appear to be treating potentially Sam Darnold. Brock Purdy, in my mind, is going to be the starting quarterback whenever he is healthy. And so at each point he affirms that he continues to be on that track, in my mind, that is worth discussing because he is going to be eventually under center. And you want that signal caller, the same guy who took you to a nearly the Super Bowl last year. And so to hear Brock Purdy at the very least, come out and speak publicly, I think it also shows confidence from his camp because he wouldn't be doing that. He wouldn't be speaking publicly if they didn't feel that.
I agree with you. It actually reminds me of a situation with the Golden State Warriors last year. And I know, you and I both work at 95.7 The Game, obviously, and I know this has been a talking point on a number of different shows. But last year, leading into the postseason, Evan, the show that you work on, Steiny and Guru, were out at Chase Center, and Steph Curry came on with the guys. And you remember what the situation was at the end of the regular season. Steph Curry missed the final 15 or 20 games, something like that. But before he returned to the court, did an interview, on the flagship radio station 95.7 The Game, and didn't confirm that he was going to play game 1 against the Denver Nuggets in the first round of the playoffs. But the takeaway essentially is, okay, the Warriors aren't going to put him out in public and have him do that interview if they don't feel confident in his recovery, and that he's at the very least going to be available soon. And so maybe it's not the exact perfect comparison because, again, Brock Purdy is so early in this process, but it does seem like, Evan, you're right. The Niners would have put the kibosh on this thing if they were worried, if there was some bad sign. The Niners certainly signed off on this appearance. I would imagine Purdy didn't spring it on them. They had to find out when they saw the tweets about it. So I'm with you. If there was anything bad, anything that the Niners were trying to hide, they wouldn't have let this appearance happen.
Yeah, I also think, look, while we're talking about local radio, I did think it was kind of cool that Brock Purdy's first interview, I know that he, along with other 49ers, had kind of spoken to some bigger names in the offseason before, but post-surgery, Brock Purdy is talking to his local affiliate in Arizona. I believe Phoenix is the Fox Sports radio station that he spoke with. But I did think that was also kind of cool. And I know Brock Purdy is, a guy that, at least to my knowledge, believes that, everything should be done kind of the right way, but he doesn't necessarily carry that holier than thou vibe, at least from what I've seen so far. He's the ultimate underdog still at this point, I'm sure, in his own mind, even though he may not be treated as next year. So I thought it was just kind of a cool gesture to see him hop on with them as opposed to going to, Jim Rome or Colin Cowherd or some, bigger named radio affiliate, which he certainly could have done. And the 49ers, I'm sure, could have asked him to do. But instead, he decided to kind of throw a bone to the hometown boys. And I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and it's some of the I don't know, maybe one of the more fun stories that the Phoenix area might have for a while. It's Brock Purdy because we all know what's going on with the Cardinals right now, and it's not pretty.
Well,
So
they do have a basketball team that has championship aspirations, but
that's true. But in terms of football,
I got you. Yeah.
they do not have a lack of things to talk about. That's for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, but everything with the Cardinals, if there is something to talk about, it generally isn't going too well, especially as it pertains to their own quarterback.
yeah, exactly. I mean, with Kyler Murray out for the next season, probably the entire season with that torn ACL and all the vacancies now on the coaching staff and in the front office with the firing sale they're going through. So they are in a bit of a mess. The Niners hope that they're not in a mess, and this appearance for Brock Purdy maybe signals that the things are going well. So again, good news for the 49ers. It seems like we still don't know all that much, but the way that the Niners, Evan, are talking about Brock Purdy, and we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, everything that they're saying and everything that they're doing, I think more important, their actions, everything that they're doing suggest Brock Purdy is their guy. You pair that, their confidence in him, what they're openly saying about him, their actions when it comes to Trey Lance, and now this appearance, it does seem like things are on the right track. And, again, we've talked about the timeline, and you could kind of get carried away and say, well, if one thing goes wrong, maybe he misses a whole month. But it does seem, just based on everything the Niners are doing, that they're at least relatively confident that Purdy is not going to miss that much time. Again, it's really early. It's hard to exactly tell, but kind of the line I think about is under promise, over deliver. And I don't think the Niners would be taking doing some of the things that they have done or that they've said if they weren't confident that it wasn't going to be an extended absence for Purdy.